All right, man, peace. So as all you brothers know who follow basketball, the Golden State Warriors are chasing history. They're trying to become just the fourth team to three-peat in the history of the modern NBA. When I say the modern NBA, I'm talking about since integration. That being the 1960s Boston Celtics, the 1990s Chicago Bulls, who did it twice, as well as the early 2000s LA Lakers. So if the Golden State Warriors were to win the championship this season, they'd become the fourth team to three-peat. They'd also become, I believe, just the second team to win 4 championships in 5 years. So of course they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
Warriors have a chance to become the first team since the 60s era Celtics to win 4 titles in a 5-year span. You've seen what's happened the last couple of times. Teams have made 4 in a row. We should have an asterisk in there for the LeBron effect.
Let me say this very quickly. Once again, as we watch the NBA this season, the Warriors are going to be compared throughout the season to the Chicago Bulls of the 1990s. And probably also they'll get a mention alongside the early 2000s Shaq and Kobe Lakers. But to me, once again, they remind me far more of the 1980s Lakers and the 1960s Celtics because of how they play and the fact that their talent level as a team is discernibly above everyone else in the NBA. Now, there was a stretch in the early to mid 80s where the talent on the Celtics was relatively commensurate with the talent on the Lakers. But by the late 80s, that's when LA started to pull away. And I think that these 2010 Warriors, they're pulling away in very similar fashion to the 60s Celtics and to the 80s Lakers. They just have way too much talent. They literally have the second and third best player in the NBA on the same team. And I'm not quite sure what the last team was that had 2 of the top 3 players in the NBA on the same team. You can make a case for the Shaq and Kobe Lakers. You can make a case for the Magic and Kareem Lakers, maybe in the mid-80s, early 80s, even though I'm not quite sure that Kareem would have been considered the second or third best player in the NBA by the mid-80s. So this team right here in the Warriors, they're certainly making history.
The Heat missed the playoffs the next year. Cavaliers, who knows what they'll be this upcoming season, but nobody's picking them to reach the finals yet again. Everybody, well, most everybody, is picking the Warriors to return. Here's Steve Kerr with our Roz Gold on Wooding.
All right, Steve. So you have the wonderful opportunity right now to potentially play.
Here goes Roz, Thirst Trap, Gold, I'm Woody.
Potentially play for a three-peat. I know you've achieved a three-peat as a player with the Bulls. What does it take?
A lot of talent. Fortunately, we have that. So, but it takes a lot more than that too. It takes a lot of resilience. It's a long haul, long season, and you've got to get through that.
Steve Kerr already knows that for the most part, in order for you to win a championship, much less multiple championships, you pretty much have to have the best player in the NBA on your team, or second best. If you don't have the best player, you have to have 2 of the top 5 next best players on your team in order to win a championship. That's pretty much been how it's been in the NBA for the past 40 or so years, other than maybe the 2004 Pistons.
But I'm excited about this year because of our youth. We've got really 5 or 6 young guys who could all play a big role, and I think they'll help us get through some of the difficult times during the season.
And speaking of that youth, 2 guys I have my eyes on, Kevon Looney, Jordan Bell. What are some ways they might have some extra responsibility?
Kevon Looney, that guy has to have the worst balance and coordination of any player in the NBA. Every time that guy runs, he looks like a baby deer just born.
Well, you know, we lost 3 really key centers from last year, Zaza, David West, and JaVale. And so we're...
You better be careful. If Zaza is on another team, I would not start any of my best players in a game against Zaza Pachulia. That guy's like a Frankenstein monster. He just hurts everybody.
So we're counting on those young guys for important minutes. They played important minutes last year, but they're going to play a lot of important minutes this year. And so this is really their opportunity, along with Damian Jones as well, for some big minutes during the regular season. It's the only way you can develop is with playing time, and they're going to get plenty of it.
Especially as you're waiting for DeMarcus Cousins to get healthy. So what are your top line priorities with him, his health, meshing him back into the team?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for DeMarcus is his health. You know, that's a difficult
Yes, physical health and mental health. He's going to have to make sure that he keeps all that extra shit in line, because the Warriors are not going to tolerate it. So I think that this season is going to be good for DeMarcus because it's going to force him to mature.
Injury to come back from, and so we're focused mainly on getting him healthy, getting him right. We won't bring him back until he is right, and once he's back, it'll be an interesting transition, because it's not like you're.
Once again, watch out for Steph Curry possibly being a dark horse to win the NBA MVP.
Like you're plugging in a standstill three-point shooter. You're plugging in an all-star, a guy who can dominate games with the ball. So it'll be fun. It'll be a big challenge for our guys, and something our fans will enjoy watching.
As you plug in an all-star, what are some anticipated tweaks you might make offensively or defensively with DeMarcus?
Well, he's a tremendous passer, great passer. So we can throw the ball inside to him. Probably haven't had a low post scorer like him since I've been here.
Yeah, that's not even a question, Steve Kerr. You should not have even hesitated on that. You have not had an offensive presence in the low post from the center spot like him ever since you've been the coach there.
But he can also step out on the perimeter and make three-point shots. You can put him in a high screen with Steph, put him at the elbows as a passer. It's a lot of different possibilities, and it's fun to think about that.
Last season we were talking about, as you go for 2 championships in a row, the mental and physical fatigue of that. What have you learned works? What have you learned, maybe doesn't work as motivational factors? And keeping it fun, keeping it spicy.
Yeah. Well, that's the challenge, because it is a long haul. If you do, or if you're fortunate enough to get back to the finals, it's pretty much 9 months. So I think this year we're not going to talk so much about how hard it is. We did that last year. We kind of looked that right in the eye and embraced that challenge and accepted it. I think this year should be more about the process of getting better and enjoying it.
Well, I predict that there are going to be some more ups and downs for you, Mr. Steve Kerr, especially from Draymond Green and maybe even Kevin Durant, especially since he's going to be a free agent. So you better be mentally prepared for what those two mama's boys are going to bring. Now, I'm on record as stating that I have far more respect for Draymond Green due to his performance in episode 1 of LeBron James's show, The Shop. But still, that mama's boy altar is still in there. That go nuclear altar is still in there. And now you've added another nuclear warhead potentially into your locker room. The difference being is that DeMarcus is going to have to really toe the line, because he knows that if he wants to get paid in the offseason by another team, he's going to have to watch himself. But expect some drastic changes with the Warriors after this season. Do not be shocked if they try to make a major trade, maybe even for Anthony Davis. Who knows? But we'll see.
We don't know how long this run is going to last. Got a lot of free agents next summer. So let's go have some fun. Let's do it.
The nice thing is you have a good chunk of the same guys back. The comfort of a KD and a Steph and a Clay and a Draymond now together. But also the question marks of some people might go, might stay. How do you organize all of that?
Yeah, that's the challenge. But it has a way of happening organically because of the guys we have. Steph and Draymond, KD, Clay, these guys, Andre and Sean, they're such professionals, and they know how to generate a good vibe in the building every day. And we try to do that as a staff. And if you do that, and guys are enjoying their work, then they just naturally get better. And obviously we've got a lot of talent, and as long as we're putting them in a position where they can all succeed, then it'll just happen on its own.
And lastly, I find myself asking players a lot how they've grown. I was here when you first started as a coach. Just curious how you feel you've now evolved as a coach to this point.
I'm a lot more confident. When I first came in, I wasn't sure that I really knew what I was doing. I had all these great ideas, but a lot of them I ended up tossing out.
Like what?
Well, that's what a good coach does. A good coach, you're going to come with a blueprint, and then you're going to have to learn how to adapt according to the talent around you. As opposed to doing what Tom Thibodeau does, which is trying to force everybody to do what his game plan states and not being able to be malleable. Right? You have to show some level of understanding with your players.
The offensive concepts and, things that I thought, oh yeah, we'll do this, we'll do that. But then you start doing the job and you realize, oh, these are the things that are important, and it's the conversations you have every day with the players individually. That's the real coaching that goes on there. The plays you run, everybody's got great stuff around the league. We got brilliant coaches in this league. They all run really good stuff. It's not so much about X's and O's as it is about, number one, talent, which we have a lot of, obviously, but number two, just the accumulation of personalities and energies and how everybody sort of fits in together. And that's what's made this team special, is our guys just seem to fit and they enjoy it.
Well, it's great to see you, and good luck this season.
Thank you, Roz. The always thoughtful Steve Kerr there. Warriors, for obvious reasons, are the favorite to three-peat, make it 4-5. Aside from injury, that's the obvious thing. What do you see as the biggest potential obstacle in their way to winning another title?
The only obstacle between the Warriors and their fourth title in 5 years is if their top three players all go down with season-ending injuries. And, who knows? You never know what could happen. We know that Steph Curry has had an issue. He's had a history of very severe ankle injuries. We never know what could happen to KD. He's had an issue with foot injuries, but I just don't see it. We'll see what happens, though.
Time.
I think ultimately, having now 5 All-Stars, 5 guys who were All-Stars the year before. First time it's been done, I think, since the 76 Celtics. Trying to manage that and deal with all the egos and personalities. I'm pulling for straws here. In terms of, I think that could be a problem, but I don't even...
Yeah, I just don't see it. Unless the Boston Celtics, unless they just take an astronomical leap in overall ability this season, I just don't see it.
But I don't even think that'll be a problem. I think they'll figure out a way to make it work. You saw that a few years ago when Kevin Durant was inserted into the mix. A team that had won the most games in the regular season. Steph Curry, 2-time MVP. And because of the character and the respect that exists in that locker room, they allowed Kevin Durant to come in and fit in. And now everyone can coexist and be who they are and have a big picture in mind in terms of winning. And I believe they'll do that with DeMarcus Cousins. Wherever he's at health-wise, they're going to try to make sure he is at his best, that he's healthy, that he can...
Well, they're definitely going to go out of their way to help him shine, especially when he first comes back. But I do believe that Steph Curry is going to try to win MVP this year. It would not shock me. I just think that from what I've seen of him in the preseason, he's made so many improvements to his overall physique that it's obvious that he's focused on having a great comeback season. And a great comeback season for him is trying to reassume what he was back in 2016.
He can contribute to the team, and I think DeMarcus, because it's the Warriors and this culture, it's the best situation for him. He doesn't have to have the pressure of being great and scoring big numbers. And so, I actually think it's going to work. I think they're going to three-peat. But I'm pulling for straws there when I say that. Maybe for whatever reason, too many egos, 5 All-Stars, somehow.
Yeah, but ego has never really been a problem before. And what they have going for them is that their personality alpha, Draymond Green, is not their best player in regards to skill set. Their best player in regards to skill set is, you could pull at straws on that one too. You could say either Kevin Durant or Steph Curry. Steph Curry is deferential and Kevin Durant is a beta. So they're not going to do too much arguing. And of course, as we all know, Klay Thompson is cool as a fan.
Somehow that'll derail them, but I don't think that will.
See many potential hiccups for this team?
Just as Grant was explaining, they'll be competing against themselves. Every single night, no matter who they play against, the competition will be against themselves. Can they play together? Can they execute and adhere to a game plan? I think that, when I listen to Steve Kerr talk, I smile and I feel good about the things that he's saying, because he's talking about truly coaching. And Grant, you know this from, we had value-based coaches, right? And they coach the person as opposed to coaching the game or the play. They wanted you to be a...
Well, I'll say this, Isaiah Thomas. I think that Steve Kerr is wily enough to know that when you have a team with this much talent, you don't have to put on too much of an act. You don't have to try to conduct yourself like your Bobby Knight back in the late 70s or early 80s throwing chairs and shit. That's not going to work. He has a great car. Just let it run on automatic. That's Steve Kerr's mentality.
You to be a better player. They wanted you to be a better person. They wanted to talk to you about your family. And that you and I were out there a couple of years ago, and we did an interview, I think, with Bob Myers. Right? If you listen to Steve Kerr, you listen to Steph Curry, you listen to Draymond, you listen to all of them, they are all echoing what Myers preaches from the top. And what he's done as a president, GM, I mean, in this day and era, right, where...
Isaiah Thomas, you must be trying to get an assistant GM job with Bob Myers. That's the only conclusion I can come to for you to claim that they're all echoing what Bob Myers states. I don't think that Draymond Green echoes what anybody states.
Where people aren't supposed to be, moving around, and the cap was set up so you couldn't get a DeMarcus Cousins to come to your team for $5 million.
Right, but we know that's an exception because DeMarcus is coming off of a torn Achilles. So it's not like they brought in a prime DeMarcus Cousins averaging 26 and 13, coming off of a healthy season, and he wants to sign there for $5 million a year just to be a part of the process. So let's not try to frame it like that, Isaiah Thomas.
The environment that he's put together and the way they've come together collectively under him, he's definitely had a Hall of Fame this last 6-7 years, and what he's done with the Golden State Warriors is definitely Hall of Fame worthy as a president GM of an organization in this era.
Griffin.
Well, I think that his next couple of moves are really going to cement it. Because if he's able to trade for an Anthony Davis or someone along those lines and then continue the Golden State dominance for another 5 or 6 years despite losing maybe a Kevin Durant or whoever, then we'll have to start looking at Bob Myers as one of the great executives on a Jerry West level.
Griff, you know as well as anybody, it's extraordinary how synchronized all parts of that machine are.
Yeah, and I think to the point Grant was making, their real enemy is going to come from within. And in my mind, it's complacency. And we saw that with them last year. They really struggled early in the year to get it all together, to get on the same page defensively, really, from an effort standpoint.
Right, but that's common with teams that are in their third year of trying to win a championship. They fall back. That's why I laugh when these clowns come on the internet and talk about how, well, Jordan's last year with the Bulls, they won 57 games, and then the next year they won 55. That last year with Jordan on the Bulls, they were cruising the whole season. The next year, they played every game in the regular season like it was Game 7 of the NBA Finals. That's why they won 55 games. But that 94 team was nowhere near as good as the 93 team. The 93 team could turn it on whenever they wanted.
Point to really lock in big moments. You could see how exasperated Steve was at certain times of the year. He was saying his message wasn't getting through, etc. Right. And when you talk to the members of that staff, that was really what they saw as their concern at the time. So now you have even more talent. You've had more continuity and time together, which does allow for the possibility of an erosion of people's willingness to continue to subjugate themselves to the will of the team. Eventually, everything comes to an end.
I agree. In the flesh, everything comes to an end eventually. It's just a matter of does it end on a positive note or on a negative note.
And usually it's ego that brings that about. And so the point Isaiah is making about the culture Bob has there and that Steve has and that Steph really is the one that allows for because of his selflessness.
Thank you, sir. Completely agree. Steph Curry is the reason why that whole thing is able to run. Because if he had wanted to put the kibosh on that whole Kevin Durant acquisition, he could have done so. That's why, once again, Kevin Durant is the greatest second banana in the history of the NBA. Arguably. In my view, he is, but arguably.
Because they're all in lockstep together, they probably have the counterbalance they're going to need to fight through those things.
Maybe he'll just stop coaching again, right? Just let the players run the team.
It got Luke Walton a job.
Well, looking down the road.
But anyway, we'll see what happens with the Golden State Warriors led by Steve Kerr. So peace.